Questions here that I got that I printed out. I try to keep up on questions when I do get them. I don't get them very often, but every now and again I'll get some questions, and I do try to keep up on these things as I can. Can you explain hard currency, the deflationary effect of hard currency, and could it work? Well, yes, of course it can. Hard currency was used for thousands of years. All hard currency is, for those, if you're not too familiar with it, is just something that can't be conjured from nothing or counterfeited. That's it. For thousands of years, gold was used, and the reason it was used wasn't because it was pretty and shiny or anything. It was because it really didn't have a lot of other purposes other than it didn't have a lot of commercial purpose, and it was pretty, it was malleable, it was pretty easy to work with, and it's an element of the periodic table, and it either weighs or it doesn't. It's either pure or it's not, and you have it or you don't. That's it. So it makes it a very ideal trade unit when you're dealing with the physical sense. And just keep this in mind. This is very important that you understand this. That I'm referring to gold trade in terms of like actual physical gold, not gold backed. If you followed any of my work, you know that. You know my thoughts on this. The term gold backed or anything backed, it doesn't matter whether it's orange internet money backed or gold backed, you won't make it very many hours before somebody conjures more currency than there is backing. I'm not kidding. In 2-3 hours, and there'll be, it's just how it works. Won't all currency end up in the hands of the 1% anyway? Not necessarily, because remember, with a hard currency, eventually, let's say that the world was your private estate, right? Sooner or later, you're going to need some help with something, and you're going to have to pay somebody something. If you have to pay them in hard currency, well, then it's not back in your possession. Because remember, that's how this works. The people who do all of the work, the actual work, all the work that you don't want to do, or that you can't do, or that you're too good to do, right? Those people are the ones who make all the money. You've heard me talk about this in the past, that those are sort of, if you want to call it an alpha trait, I'm using the term alpha in like the softer sense. I don't mean, what you guys think. I'm just saying it's like somebody who's willing to do something that others won't. That's it. Okay. So if nobody's willing to go and, roof a house in August in Houston, and then you finally find somebody who's willing to go do it, you got to pay them money. And of course, if you've got to pay them in hard currency, well, then no. I mean, the currency is going to make its way out there into the real world. And keep in mind too, the only reason why you're seeing the so-called 1% that exists now, right? It used to be the 80-20 rule, right? So you'd have 1 in 5 people were quite wealthy. Now you have 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 100 that are quite wealthy, and the reason that is because of fake money. It's because of all the money conjured of nothing. It's because of the Ponzi scheme. Remember, the math is catching up, but that's why you have so many people, running around screaming about, oh my God, everything is coming to an end. Well, yeah, it's coming to an end for them. I don't give a fuck about them, for real. I mean, like anybody who's been part of this stupid scam, whether it's any of the politicians, any of the bankers, brokers, boomers, billionaires, sorry guys, I just don't give a fuck what happens to you on this. You have brought this on yourself. You have run a Ponzi scheme for far too long, and if it comes down on top of you, I don't care. And by the way, while we're about it, I don't. When people finally decide to hunt you down and seek revenge, again, I don't care. Because, dude, at any given point, you guys could stop this shit, but you're not. And in fact, I'm talking specifically, since this is an election season, there's a couple of people running, and a bunch of you all think that, if we vote for this one guy, he's gonna fix all this. No, he ain't. He can do shit, dude. Promise you, he ain't doing shit. He's part of all of this, just as that other, what's her name? Fuck, man. Would loans even be a thing in a hard currency environment? Depends on how hard the currency is. You understand? So the harder the currency, the more difficult it is to do lending of any kind. Because if you have a hard currency, let's say that you had, I don't know, a bunch of little yellow metal discs, right? Gold discs, and you lent them all out. Well, and you want interest on that. Well, okay, where does the interest come from? They have to go out somewhere in the world and either dig it, like literally dig it out of the ground, or they've got to do something out there in the world to gain this back. And at a certain point of an economy, you run out of places to pull interest from. This is what's happening to the West in general, actually, and like something like 67 countries right now. This is what's happening all over the world. Is people are running out of. This is why everybody's getting antsy. This is why you're running into so many assholes now. Seriously, it's because these people are they're fucking broke, dude. They can't afford to do any of this shit anymore. I mean, it's just. It was fake to begin with. Now it's really starting to come home to roost, and that's what's happening with a lot of this. So, you know, they're all panicking, trying to freak out, like, oh my God, you know, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna fix all this? You know, the real estate people in particular are freaking the fuck out about this, because if you paid a bunch of money for that house and now you can't find a corresponding buyer, well, then you are kind of shit out of luck, aren't you? Especially if everybody turns it into a fucking Airbnb. How many Airbnbs do you really need? So, yeah. So would lending be a thing? If the currency, if it's a really hard currency, such as, for example, the orange internet money out there, no, there's no way to really do that. There's no way to do lending with that, because you already know how much orange internet money already exists in the world. You already know it. So if somebody were to say, oh, I want X amount of interest, you would already know mathematically it's not possible to pay it back. That's the one challenge that gold has in terms of fungibility. Gold is far more fungible than orange internet money, but gold, you know, the only answer is like when someone says, well, how much gold is there? The answer is nobody knows. That is the only correct answer, by the way, because nobody does know. You know, what would happen if we switch to another currency? What happens to my debt? Okay, well, if your debt is denominated in dollars, then the dollar dies, right? Which is the goal, right? I mean, that's my stated goal. My stated goal is to actually bring about the collapse of the US dollar once and for all. And then get people to come out of their fog and their delusion and start realizing that, you know, that the people that are doing all the work are getting really fucking tired of doing all the work, and they're rapidly going to start not doing it anymore. And we're already seeing this. This is, you know, there's a recurring theme when I talk about the competency crisis because of this, okay? So, no, you bring about the collapse of the dollar, then everybody goes back to normal, and you go back to hard currency, then you're going to see an 80-20 again. And remember, 20% will do 80% of the work, but they will also make 80% of the money. That's just how it is, okay? So, you know, but if you convert over, you know, like, because what they'll do is they'll tempt you. They'll say, hey, we'll cut your debt in half if you switch over to this CBDC and agree to owe all this money in this so-called stable coin or whatever, and don't agree to it. Just tell them, no, get fucked. Again, remember, there's a difference between me and other guys out there talking about pay off all your debt. There's a difference, you know. The difference is, you know, someone telling you to pay off all your debt versus me telling you to tell the bankers to get fucked. We're not the same. Why do you bash conservatives all the time? Because bashing liberals would be like pistol whipping a blind kid. I mean, most liberals and leftists are just morons, dude. I mean, have you seen a lot of the liberals and leftists? They're not exactly the smartest people out there. I mean, like, half of them are batshit fucking crazy. No, I pick on a lot of the conservatives just because I see a lot of these ideas they tout, and then I start asking questions, and they don't have answers. You know, like, well, okay, then if you don't have answers, then really you probably should rethink your position, you know, on some of this, particularly when it comes to the money aspect.